Hi and welcome to our Oasis Global Gathering. I'm Nathan Jones and I'm one of the two ministers of Oasis Church Waterloo. It's great to have you with us this morning, and we're going to start today with a prayer. If you were with us a couple of weeks ago, you'll know that we talked about how we might look after our well-being through this month of lockdown too. So here's a prayer for all of us, which talks a bit about that. Remind us, God, that what has been will be again. Long conversations over a coffee, loud laughs over a beer, singing along at a packed full gig, breath taken away silence at a play. Remind us, God, that what has been will be again. Easy evenings with friends, meals with family, squeezing onto a tube train, ironing our work clothes. Remind us, God, that what has been will be again. But until then, in this liminal space between what was and what will again be, draw near. Draw near to us and to those who we love. Draw near to those who are sick and to those who care for them. And draw near to those who would dearly love to be there and help. Remind us, God, that what has been will be again. But when this is over, remind us not to go back to how it was. Remind us, God, of this time. And when we're tempted to pull back to try and rely on ourselves, help us to remember our need for each other, our interconnectedness, our interdependence. Remind us that we are created to be community together. And as you model community, Parent, Son, Holy Spirit, remind us that when we walk down busy streets once more, to look at the people around us and to see the image of you in each and every one of them. Amen. Now, if you've been with us for the last few months, you'll know that we've been running a series called Building Something Better, looking again at what we've been told about Christianity and asking, is this really what I believe, or is there a different story? Well, that series comes to an end this week with Jo Dolby, who leads Oasis Church Bath. Jo will be exploring some answers to another tough question. What do I do when I believe new things that my friends or family don't? Before that, though, we're going to hear from Rebecca Gibson, who will be talking to us about food insecurity and how we might respond to that this Christmas.
Since March, we've talked to you a number of times about emergency food provision, as demand for our food projects across Oasis is higher than ever. Many of us are struggling due to the ongoing pressures of COVID-19. This Christmas, we want to make sure no one goes hungry, and that people across Oasis can have some treats to brighten their Christmas. Our churches in Bath and Waterloo have some projects planned that we need your help with. Oasis Bath are planning to support 60 families this Christmas, providing each family with a Give a Gift hamper, each containing 5 bags with different Christmas activities and food. This means they want to fund 300 bags in total, costing £5 each. If you're able and want to give to Bath, you can text Oasis Hub Bath, all one word, followed by the amount up to £20 to 70450. Or you can give at oasisbath.org/Christmas2020. Oasis Waterloo will be helping deliver over 500 hampers containing food, toiletries and gifts through Waterloo Food Bank to people struggling to afford food this Christmas. Need for Waterloo Food Bank has increased 130% since the start of the pandemic, and we need your help this Christmas and beyond. To give to Waterloo, go to oasiswaterloo.org/Christmas2020. And if you're watching from somewhere else and you're not part of the congregations normally at Waterloo or Bath, you can give to our Oasis UK crowdfunder, which will support our hubs across the country this Christmas. Go to oasisuk.org/Christmas hamper to give to Oasis nationally. Last year, someone who had a Christmas hamper said this: "Thank you. You've completely turned my Christmas around. I was worried I would have no food to eat at all. Now I have the food we need and treats for me and the kids. It's like a burden has been lifted. Thank you so much. Any amount you can give will help everyone in our communities to have a better Christmas this year. And if you can't give but would like to support in other ways, please get in touch with the teams at Bath or Waterloo.
Thanks, Rebecca. I don't know about you, but if I'm honest, I always find it hugely frustrating that despite living in one of the richest countries in the world, we still have to do this work. But while it's necessary, we'll be here to help. So here again are those web addresses that Rebecca mentioned. Now it's almost time for Jo to speak to us, but before she does, here's Julia Trickey, who's also from Oasis Church Bath, with today's Bible reading.
Acts chapter 15, starting at verse 36. Sometime later, Paul said to Barnabas, "Let us go back to visit the believers in all the towns where we preach the word of the Lord and see how they're doing." Barnabas wanted to take John, also known as Mark, with them. But Paul did not think it was wise to take him because he deserted them in Pamphylia and not continued with them in the work. They had such a sharp disagreement that they parted company, and Barnabas took Mark and sailed for Cyprus. But Paul chose Silas and left. Commended by the believers to the grace of the Lord, he went through Syria and Cilicia, strengthening the churches.
It's that time of year when we're perhaps starting to think about Christmas. What we'll do, where we'll go, whether November is too early to put the tree up or not, how big the neighbours are going to go this year with the Christmas lights, what presents we're going to buy, and of course, as a one-off 2020 special, whether COVID is going to ruin all of those plans or not. One thing about Christmas that might be true for lots of us is returning home, or being around family and friends we don't normally see or spend lots of time with. People who have different values, different perspectives, different beliefs, maybe people who think things we used to think but don't anymore. Sometimes it can feel like we've been on this massive journey of change and growth, and when we return to certain places or people from our past, it feels like we're the only ones who have changed. So what do we do when we've changed, grown, progressed, when we think all these new things that our friends, family or community just don't? The passage we heard today from Acts 15 tells us about what sounds like a pretty massive row between two prominent leaders of the early church, maybe on the scale of that Brexit argument you got sucked into with your family last Christmas. I think though there are some really helpful things that we can pick out of this passage. Firstly, it's normal to disagree. Here we see Paul and Barnabas disagreeing. In fact, Jesus disagreed with lots of people. He disagreed with his disciples as they misunderstood his purpose and power. He disagreed with the Pharisees and religious rulers of his day. And yes, he even disagreed with his own family. It's okay to think different things to others, but there's something there already in remembering who they are. They are family. They are loved by God. Let's try to see everyone through that lens, a lens of love. Stephen Covey said that we often listen to reply, not to understand. But when we really listen, when we try to see where this person might be coming from, why they might think what they think, loving them becomes easier. There's a risk, I think, that when we feel we've moved on to a new place and someone else hasn't, we can see them as inferior to us. Ugh, how can they still be back there thinking those things? I'm so much more enlightened and progressive. There's a risk here, isn't there, of falling into arrogance and pride, which isn't the way of love. Some of us might be able to relate to a faith deconstruction experience where we've had this faith crisis where we've questioned everything we believed, then come out the other side with a newfound understanding. People who are still where we were can trigger something in us because we no longer agree with what they think and we want to bring them with us. But we need to remember to have grace and patience with people who maybe aren't where we are, who maybe have had different life experiences to us. I love this quote from Pete Rollins, and I was really personally challenged when I first heard it. When we're judgmental of others' naive positions, we often demonstrate a profound amnesia concerning the journey we have taken. Our lack of grace only serves to insult the grace that was shown to us by others who helped us rethink our positions. I'm embarrassed and horrified when I think of some of the things that I used to say and think. And I don't think those things anymore, but only because of the grace, patience, and love of others who could see something I couldn't see at that time. Let's have grace for one another. Let's be patient with people and accept that we are all on our own path. When we move on from a particular mindset, worldview, or theology, there's always a risk that we will then reject absolutely everything about that place, when actually there might still be some really good stuff to take with us. There's a verse I love from Matthew 23, verse 23, when Jesus is rebuking some religious leaders. He says to them, "Woe to you, teachers of the law, and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You give 1/10 of your spices, mint, dill, and cumin, but you have neglected the more important matters of the law, justice, mercy, and faithfulness. You should have practiced the latter without neglecting the former." Jesus is rebuking them because they kind of missed the point, really. They wanted to keep the law, and the law said to give 1/10. So instead of focusing on more important things like justice, mercy, and faithfulness, they were obsessing over every tiny thing and seeing themselves as holier than everybody else. I mean, imagine trying to give away 1/10 of your cumin. But what Jesus says at the end of that particular rebuke is fascinating. He says, you should have practiced the latter without neglecting the former. How often do we rush on to the new thing and in our haste and excitement reject something really important that actually we need to take with us? Let's do the latter, but also not neglect the former. I've been part of mostly evangelical churches in the past, and whilst my journey has taken me away from that kind of theology and way of doing church, I'm deeply grateful for what I learned from those places and people, all of which has shaped me into who I am and what I do now. There are so many good things I've learned from evangelical Christianity, and I don't want to reject it completely. Have you ever heard someone talk about faith stages? It's the idea that there are these kind of stages that we pass through as our faith develops. James Fowler's Stages of Faith is probably the most famous example, but you might know about others too. I think what I really like about faith stages is they remind me that we're on a journey. We don't stay the same. A healthy faith is one that's growing, changing, maturing. But the danger of faith stages is that we can see the stage that we've left as inferior, rejecting everything about where we were before. A few years ago now, I came across a human development theory called spiral dynamics, and I think this is a much healthier way of thinking about faith. So there are stages you move through, but the idea is that you take things from the previous stage with you into the next one. It reminds me of a tree trunk that starts as a small, thin sapling, but over the years, layers of bark grow on top of one another. What was there in the beginning is still there, buried beneath it all, but new things have been added over the years, and as a result, it's stronger than ever. I think we're made strong by taking the best from where we've been with us, not rejecting it completely. What about you? What have you rejected from a previous part of your journey that still has value and worth? Could this be how you connect with those who are still in a stage you've moved on from as you find something in common? Finally then, I think this passage tells us that it's okay for people not to be in our lives forever. Paul and Barnabas actually parted ways. Now, of course, it's more complicated with family, but there are some people that perhaps we were friends with for one season of our lives, and for this new season, that friendship is not going to be good for either of you. That's okay. Not everyone and everything has to be in your life forever. It feels really important to say too that setting boundaries around people who are triggering or damaging to you is really healthy and important, especially when we think about returning to places or people that can be unsafe or damaging. Limit the time you spend there. Have certain topics that are off limits if that's helpful for your mental health. Take a friend with you or have somebody that you can call while you're away. feel free to suggest some things that have helped you in the comments. But having good, healthy boundaries is a really important thing to do to protect yourself and maintain your well-being. So we started with a question. What do we do when we believe new things that our family, friends and community don't? Well, first of all, we remember they are family and we love them even when that's hard. We remember that it's okay and normal to disagree with people. We seek to understand others and why they think what they think. We need to show them grace, just like we were shown grace by others. We need to not reject everything about a place we've left. We need to take the good stuff with us and be thankful for how it has shaped us and led us to where we are now. Rachel Held Evans said, "It's a mark of mature faith to honour the best from the tradition you've left behind, to hold even the broken pieces in love and thanks." We can take good things with us on the journey and use them as a point of connection with those who no longer think what we think. We can set healthy boundaries to protect ourselves and know it's okay to let people go if we need to. And finally, we can be assured that just like Paul and Barnabas, whether we're retracing old steps or going somewhere totally new, whatever direction we travel in, God goes with us.
Thanks, Jo. Before we move on, let's spend a minute reflecting on some of those questions that Jo posed. How often do we rush on to the new thing and in our haste and excitement reject something really important that we actually need to take with us? What have you rejected from a previous part of your journey that still has value and worth? What is there from our earlier journey of faith which could help us connect with those who are still in a stage that we've moved on from? If you feel like you need to set boundaries to protect yourself, what practical things could you do? And finally, when we're in those conversations with people who have different opinions to ours, how can we learn to see the image of God in that person and respond with grace? That's almost it. But before I leave you, a few pieces of news from across Oasis. Both of our churches have a community forum in the next couple of weeks, a chance for us to update you on how things are going and to answer your questions. If you're part of Oasis Church Bath or Waterloo, it would be great to see you there. Bath's community forum is at 8 p.m. on Sunday, November the 29th. And the following Sunday, December the 6th, Waterloo's church forum starts at 7:30 p.m. They're both on Zoom, and we'll be sending out the links in the coming days, so keep an eye out for your regular church email. Also, as part of our commitment to well-being through this second lockdown, Jill Rowe, who's the Ethos and Formation Director here at Oasis, Jill's running a Zoom session on Wednesday night, 8 till 9, looking at bringing peace and calm. I'm sure I'm not the only one who could do with a bit of that at the moment. And finally, come and work with us. We've got 3 part-time jobs going in Waterloo at the moment. We're looking for a family support worker, an administrator for our community and families work, and a child and adolescent therapist to work with our young people. There's more detail about all of those jobs at the address on the screen. So that's it for this week. We're going to end with a song, a modern version of an old spiritual called "Oh Mary, Don't You Weep." It might not be one that you know very well, but even if you don't, you'll pick it up pretty quickly, and it's a great one to join in with at home. Thanks for being with us. See you next week, and God bless you.